Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the Ingrove in Phoenix, Arizona. Today I'm going to do a review and talk to you a little bit about the recently released Doors LA Woman UHQR from Analogue Productions. This was kind of an exciting announcement for me and a very exciting review for me because this is my favorite band of all time, The Doors. And this is also my favorite album of all time. I absolutely positively love this album. I love this album since I was maybe about 11 years old, 11 years old when I discovered the Doors. I have a monumental quantity of Doors albums, including LA Woman, everything you could possibly imagine. I've done a shootout video on this record in the past. I've commented on this record many times. The Analogue Productions 45 RPM that I'll show you guys here in a minute is a demo record for me. It's one of the 5 records that I use to test new gear because I'm so familiar with that specific record, how it sounds, and how it should sound on a piece of gear that I know when I make a change in the system, I know the differences and I know what to expect and what's been added or what is missing. So I will talk to you about those in great detail. I want to talk to you about these as well. Now, I'll link below the video shootout that I did of this album that'll kind of rank everything in order how I feel it is sound-wise. Of course, it doesn't include this because this wasn't out yet. But you can kind of gain my thoughts on the previous releases by watching that video. So I started a YouTube channel in 2006. Now, I wasn't making videos on vinyl records in 2006, but the very first record I ever released to YouTube, now since I've made it private so you can't see it, but that was me playing my Vox Continental. I just bought a Vox Continental, and that was me playing a snippet, I believe, of Light My Fire. My son was maybe 2 months old. He's in the background. You can hear him making noises. Of course you can't because the video is not posted. But oddly enough, that was my very first video that I posted to YouTube, was me playing maybe 25 seconds of Light My Fire on the Vox Continental. I've since taken it down because I'm a big Doors fan. I'm a big vinyl record fan. I'm an awful organist. But the Doors inspired me to get into music, to get into vinyl records, to get into playing music. I wanted to be able to make beautiful runs on the Vox Continental and do beautiful soloing like Ray. I wanted, Red SG over there, I wanted to play beautiful guitar like Robbie Krieger. I knew I was never going to sing like Jim, but that's besides the point. I absolutely love the band. I'm familiar with everything they've done, all the variations of all the pressings, and how everything should sound. Because not only can I listen to all these records, play these records, compare these records, I'm so familiar with how the instruments should sound. I've owned a Vox Continental. I owned various guitars, configurations that were used by Ray. I had a Vox Continental, Fender Rhodes piano, Fender Rhodes bass. I believe he used the Vox Continental on this and a Wurlitzer piano, one instrument I've never had. He might have used the B3 on this as well. I'm pretty sure he did. By that point, he was using I think his Gibson was, I don't know if he was using his Gibson. I think it was a G101 from memory. I don't think he was using that. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm just so very familiar with how this record sounds from the various degrees. But let me show you guys the new UHQR. Here we have the new box. Now, I was very skeptical of this box. I talked to Chad about this box quite a few times, and I told him, I'm like, you know, when you take something away from people, regardless of how many people in this box have complained, when you take things away from people, they tend not to like that. And don't let the vocal minority, a few people, sway you from making a bad decision. So I was very reluctant to do a switch to this box. Obviously, it's not my choice, but I wasn't on board with the philosophy of changing this box. But when I actually got it in my hand, I didn't mind it. Now, it's unfortunate this isn't the box we got from the beginning. I enjoyed the old box, the wooden dowel, but I appreciate less size and more space on my shelf for more records, of course. But I gotta say, as I think it's a plus. So there's a lot of ways to make that he could have made this box. This is kind of, I think, the best of what your options. I mean, a box is a box, but this is kind of the perfect construction of a box. You have the spine here that's broken in a sense, so you don't have, some boxes, this is connected and then that starts to wear after a while. You get buckling, paper peeling on the seam. This is kind of about the most ideal configuration you're going to get for this style of box. Not only that, it's a very thick cardboard. It's very similar in a sense to the original UHQR box without the wooden dowel. So I got to say, this is about as nice as you're going to get without having the previous box. I really do like it, and I thought I wouldn't. You guys have probably seen a bunch of times. You've got the record, you got stuff. I mean, this has a little essay in it. Pictures. Oh, look. With your copy of the original master tape. This was recorded at the Doors Workshop, which essentially was their office. It was still there, still in LA. I think there is a sushi restaurant there currently. But you can actually go to this recording location and have some California rolls. UHQR manual, what it is, how they make it, advertisement. This is a unique UHQR in the sense that they didn't do the big deluxe gatefold jacket. This has the more traditional jacket reminiscent of the original. The original came with this white inner sleeve. Of course, this is, oh, interesting. It's not actually an inner sleeve. This is just a piece of paper. But the way it originally came was white inner sleeve, crucifixion on the back, and it had this this picture window with an embossed cover. So that's kind of what you're getting here, a more true to form. Now, the unique thing about this is, unlike a lot of UHQRs, this is done at 33 RPM. There's been a few, but what's even more unique about this particular UHQR is Chad created a situation to where he has to compete with himself because he has a $125 UHQR, or you can go out and buy for $60, a little less than half. You can buy the 45 RPM that is cut by Doug Sachs with the more modern audiophile type cover. So the 45 RPM with this album inherently has a leg up over a 33. And that is just because you are able to take this long record, spread it out. You take the two long tracks. They're nowhere near the inner groove anymore. I myself, and I've talked about this in the shootout video, to where I picked the Analogue Productions 45 RPM as the best sounding version of this record you can buy. The benefit of that is monumental on this album as compared to a lot of records. There's a lot of records that are just, you take a Van Halen One Step from Mobile Fidelity. Those are very short records. So those don't have the inherent benefit to a 45 RPM that something like this, a long-sided record, has. So it's a huge leg up from the jump. So the record, the UHQR in general, has a tough road to climb just by the very nature of the recording, the track positioning, for the reasons I just mentioned. So the 45 has a huge leg up. And that's why, although reluctantly, because I'm not a huge fan of 45s, I've gotten to the point where I really, unless it's monumentally better, I don't want to own a 45 RPM because they take up more space. I don't want to be switching records over as much. It breaks up the flow. It's all the stuff you've heard before. But if a record like this is that much better, it doesn't matter. And for me, the Analogue Productions 45 RPM of this record has always been worth the inconvenience. It is that much better. And because of it, I've always just recommended it. I've recommended it many, there's probably 20 times you can go back onto the YouTube channel and see me talk about that record in great detail. It is that good. It is awesome. And it's not just me, I think, at this point that have kind of gotten wise to that. I was at Exponent in 2024 and I was listening to, I mean, there was dealers playing the Riders on the Storm side of this record on $2 million systems. And let me tell you, as a dealer, when you go to these hi-fi shows and these guys have $1, $2, $3, $4 million systems, they don't play run-of-the-mill sounding records on those systems because it would be at the detriment of public perception of those records. So when you go to those particular hi-fi shows, you typically only hear a lot of female vocal singers, stuff that maybe you wouldn't necessarily hear in your home stereo because you wouldn't really want to play it because it's musically not that good. But that's besides the point. But they were playing this because it is that good sonically and musically. Okay, how do I like the UHQR? Now I know I'm a little late to making this video, and I know that this is, I don't know how this is going to go over, but I don't really care for this. Let me detail why. Okay, so Bernie Grundman, who mastered this, has done a lot of stuff with the Doors. He's done a lot of live concerts, remastering. He did the box set. I don't really care for the way any of those sound. I don't care. Just at this point, I feel comfortable saying I really don't care for the Bernie Grundman sound in relationship to the Doors. It is not my thing. And this is no exception. I know this record has gotten a lot of good press, but there's something that I can't get over, and that is the way the album sounds in relationship to how it should sound, how it has sounded on every other previous recording, and the way everything on the record should sound in real life. And that is Ray's organs, pianos, transistor organs, the way those should sound, the way Robbie's guitar should sound, the way Jim's vocals should sound. And that gets changed a lot with this record. And it gets changed too much, in my opinion. One of the things that's most noticeable is Jerry Schiff's bass. Legendary bass player. Elvis, my favorite musician of all time, my favorite performer of all time. Absolutely love Elvis. Jerry Schiff, his bass player, one of the greatest bass players of all time, plays most of the bass on this record. The Doors, Ray would play a piano bass or something live, but for more bass reinforcement, they always brought in a bass player, and Jerry Schiff was the bass player on this album. How cool for the Doors to bring in the legendary Jerry Schiff. But the problem with this record is Jerry Schiff is a lot more in the band than he's ever been on any other version of the band. And I mean, he's more in the band than he's ever been on not only every version, but even he's more in the band than the band is in the band. Jerry Schiff is so prominent. So prominent. And Ray gets buried. The Vox Continental, the Fender Rhodes piano, the Wurlitzer piano, those instruments have such a unique sound. And it's one of the unique sounds of the Doors is the combination of Ray's playing on the record, and it is missing here. When I say it's missing, is all of the sharpness, all of the dynamic range. You know, when you play those types of instruments, that Vox Continental, the transistor organ that was used by on most of the Doors, you know, it's kind of that steady instrument, that iconic Doors instrument. It was used on House of the Rising Sun. It was used on the Beatles' Help I'm Down at Shea Stadium. You can see John playing it with his elbow. A very iconic instrument used by Question Mark and the Mysterians on 96 Tears. A very iconic sound, but it has a very sharp, punchy, screechy, dynamic sound. And you get that on not all of these, because Bernie's, I think it was 2008 remaster, is pretty crummy too. But you get it on most all of these records I have here that I'll show you in a minute. It's mellowed out here. You don't have the range. You don't have on the Fender Rhodes piano, you don't have that punchy, because it's a different style. So the piano itself, if you're not familiar with the Fender Rhodes, it's a unique instrument in the sense that it's kind of a piano slash guitar hybrid, in the sense that you've got hammers that hit a bar, but it's picked up by, I believe, like a guitar pickup almost in the piano. So it has a really weird sound in comparison to other instruments that have ever been made. But it's a very unique sound. That's this piano you hear on Riders on the Storm. It's a very unique sound. But a lot of that tactile feel is missing in this UHQR. Now, it has a bass that goes lower, and it's a more pronounced bass. Like I said, Jerry is very prominent, where he's not so prominent on these other copies. He's very prominent, and the upper end is very prominent, but everything else is kind of pushed and smushed to the middle. And it has a more detailed sound. It has a more audiophile sound in a way, but it doesn't have a sound that's even kind of reminiscent of, for instance, the original Artisan press. Here's a white label promo, the original copy. It's missing. It just doesn't sound like the Doors LA Woman. And that, for me, is a problem. I know the comments will come down fast and furious, and I don't care, because this is my favorite album of all time, and I know how I want to hear it. And for me, the 45 RPM from Analogue Productions is still the overall best presentation, because it's a cross of the original, very detailed and very dynamic first pressing. Here's just happens to be a white label promo. Here's another white label promo. Here's another copy, beautiful in the shrink first pressing. Another copy in the shrink first pressing. Here's another first pressing. Here's another beautiful first pressing. I got plenty of these. But it has, I even have a test pressing of the Analogue Productions 45 RPM. The 45 RPM has the original sound, but it also has the detail of a more audiophile record. You know, it has a more tighter, deeper bass, and it also has a more upper end. You know, that upper end is allowed to be extended, and it's not repressed. It might have been something that was cut off the original versus the master tape, but it has kind of the best of all worlds, which the UHQR just doesn't have. And I don't know how this would be on everybody's system. I don't know if you need the Uber system like I've got in the sound room to kind of get this out. I don't feel like you would. One of the things I want to do is go and I want to test this on some lower price, more budget-friendly systems, and I'll probably do that later today. But I'm not lying to you when I tell you that I actually listened to, before I made this video, I probably listened to this album maybe, and not just a song or two, but I probably listened to this maybe about 30, 35 times between this, the different first pressings, the 45 RPM. The best way I can tell you guys to focus in on the sound of this is just listen to Ray. I know all the love and all the credit goes to Jim, but man, he's so unique, and he is the Doors sound. Now, I'm not taking away John and Robbie, but Ray his playing is so central to the Doors sound. His instruments are so central to the Doors sound. Focus in on Ray. Focus in on Ray here, and focus in on Ray on the other records, and you'll notice there's just something missing. It's flat, and it's not it's not for me. But I'll also say this as well. This 45 or this 33 is also the best 33 you're going to get in print. It is analog, it is cut from the master tape, and it is significantly better than the weirdly compressed and limited Bernie Grundman. That's the $25 version you can get. I mean, it is. It just is much, much, much better than that. So if you got to have a 33, some people don't like 45s, and it's not some people, quite a few people. I have regular customers who, they have a standing note in their account. If this is a 45, do not send it to me. Refund my money, because they just don't want 45s. Some people's turntables can't play 45s. So it's weird, but there was a lot of, especially some audiophile tables from the 70s and 80s, that 45s were not really you know, they weren't an option. The motor doesn't spin at 45. So not everybody is on board with 45. Now, if you're just a casual fan of this record and you listen to this in a vacuum, meaning this is your copy of this, it's going to be good because it's a really good recording to start with. And unless you start getting into the weeds with this, although I don't know if I'm getting into the weeds, I'm just so familiar with this record, I don't know if this would be a problem. But yeah, it's the best of the 33s that are currently available, but I don't spend the time, spend the effort, and just spin up the 45 RPM. It is quite a bit better. It just is. I prefer the overall presentation of this. It's just better than the 33. And, you know, I know, like I said, I know that this is not going to be a popular topic. I know people aren't going to share, a lot of people aren't going to share this opinion. But I'm telling you, focus in on the instruments. Yes, if you look at the big picture, the overall frequency is a lot more, but listen to everybody one at a time. Listen to Ray, listen to John, listen to Robbie, listen to Jim, focus in on those aspects, and I think you'll come to the same conclusion I have. Like I said, a huge fan of this record. Let me show you some of the stuff I have. I have no shortage of options when it comes to this particular record. Like I said, I got multiple. Now, keep in mind, it was pressed at many different plants. So I have many different options as far as different pressing plants of the original. Beautiful copies in shrink that have the original hype sticker featuring the hit Love Her Madly. I already showed you all these beautiful white label promos where they put the hype sticker directly on the jacket. This one, oddly enough, is missing the inner. I should grab one from the store. Another white label promo. Actually, I don't know where I got this. I've had it for quite some time. This is the Analogue Productions 45 RPM test pressing of this record. DCC, this was done by Steve Hoffman and Kevin Gray back in the 90s. This was just a novelty. This is probably Bernie's cut on white vinyl. This was an import. This is, in my opinion, the dreadful Bernie Grundman cut from 15 years ago. I've got Japanese pressings of this. This is a Japanese promo of this. One of my most fun, exciting things to listen to are these next two, and I listen to these quite a bit because it's a cool diversion from a record that I've heard like 1,000 times. This is the Record Store Day box that came out a while ago, which essentially is a bunch of outtakes from the 50th anniversary. You know, the 50th anniversary included a bunch of alternate cuts, that type of thing. And this is the Record Store Day box set that kind of was an abbreviated version of that. And they also, kind of using some of that, came out with this Doors, the alternate LA Woman, the workshop sessions. This is also a fantastic release. Unfortunately, it's not in print anymore. But this is kind of like when they redid the Beatles box sets, to where they kind of put in, they did Sgt. Pepper, the anniversary remix. They put in kind of like an alternate Sgt. Pepper, and that's kind of what this is, using alternate takes. So the workshop sessions is super cool. But I will say, yeah, my absolute favorite album of all time. I just don't really care for the way this sounds. And most of these Analogue Productions UHQRs are pretty phenomenal, but this is not my favorite. All right. Check us out online at theingroove.com. Until next time.